All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're unpacking a really compelling historical text today, one that examines the strict rules of warfare in early Islamic history. We're going to look at a deeply dramatic case study from the year 634 CE, and honestly, it reads almost like a modern legal thriller, except it takes place right at the besieged walls of Damascus. The source material we're exploring presents this stark argument about how legal protections actually operated during the absolute blinding chaos of ancient sieges.
The source anchors its entire argument on this foundational principle of martial law. The quote here is drawn from a hadith, a recorded saying of the Prophet Muhammad, and it establishes a pretty remarkable legal precedent. It basically means that a guarantee of safety given by a single, ordinary soldier holds the exact same legal weight as a guarantee given by the highest-ranking commander. It's a heavy concept, and as we're going to see, this specific legal doctrine is about to be put to the ultimate stress test.
Now, before diving into the history, the article asserts a really sharp, highly critical contrast. The author argues that modern Western military interventions starkly violate human rights, and to support this, the text cites modern casualty figures regarding post-9/11 conflicts and the war in Gaza, specifically referencing numbers from Dr. Gideon Polya. The source is using this modern political critique to set up a direct juxtaposition with what it describes as the strict legal restraint shown in ancient Islamic warfare, specifically a hyper-focus on adhering to a dhimma, which is a covenant of protection.
And to further cement this framing, the author points to this striking quote from political scientist Samuel Huntington. According to the text, this quote really encapsulates the modern context of organized violence, which the source then directly contrasts with the rigorous legal discipline demanded of early Muslim armies. It's a provocative setup, for sure, designed to make us question our assumptions about civilizational progress and the laws of armed conflict.
Section 1, September 6, 34 CE, Two Paths into Damascus.
To illustrate this whole thesis, the source transports us to a literal split-screen moment at the thick stone walls of Damascus. The city has been under a grueling siege, and the climax unfolds in two radically different ways at the exact same moment. We've got two commanders taking two completely different paths into the exact same city. Let's look a bit closer at these opposing entries.
Picture this. At the Al-Jabiya Gate, Commander Abu Ubaydah has established a binding treaty, that dhimma we just talked about. He is peacefully entering the city. The source describes what sounds like an almost surreal scene. Abu Ubaydah and his men walking calmly, their swords completely sheathed, following right behind local Christian monks and priests who are actually raising the Bible and burning frankincense to welcome them. It is a highly orderly, legally sanctioned surrender.
But on the complete opposite side of the city, at the eastern gate, the overall campaign commander, Khalid ibn al-Walid, is completely unaware of Abu Ubaidah's peaceful treaty. Khalid has found a vulnerability. With the help of a local priest named Jonah, who defected to seek safety for his own family, Khalid's forces break the locks, cut the chains, and breach the walls by sheer force. They charge in with swords drawn, actively fighting and capturing wealth as they push deeper into the city.
Section 2, The Legal Clash, Showdown at the Church of Mary.
So, the crucial breaking point is when these two opposing forces crash into each other, right in the dead center of Damascus, at the city's main cathedral, the Church of Mary. The historical transcript provided in the source reads exactly like a gripping legal drama. On one hand, Abu Ubaydah calmly states that peace has been made, pointing to his sheathed swords. Meanwhile, an absolutely incredulous Khalid gestures to his fighting man asking, "What peace?" He's pointing to the captured wealth and the ongoing battle, arguing the city was rightfully taken by force. Literally two contradictory realities happening at the exact same moment.
What makes this clash so fascinating to analyze is the chain of command. Khalid points out a major technicality. He is the commander-in-chief. He technically outranks Abu Ubaydah on this specific campaign. By any standard military logic, the higher-ranking officer's orders should immediately override the subordinate. Khalid insists he will not remove his sword, but Abu Ubaydah just stands his ground, refusing to budge on the rule of law. He insists that his written agreement of protection is absolutely 100% legally binding, regardless of rank.
And tensions just boil over. Abu Ubaydah looks around at Khalid's soldiers, who are described as eager to claim the spoils of a violent conquest. Seeing the treaty on the verge of collapsing into a complete bloodbath, Abu Ubaydah physically points to the looting soldiers and takes an absolute sworn oath on behalf of the Prophet to halt all fighting instantly. The sheer moral weight of this oath forces the entire battle to freeze, while the generals literally convene to argue the law.
Section 3. Upholding the peace. Negotiating the fate of the defeated.
High-ranking companions of the Prophet have to intervene to mediate this unprecedented constitutional crisis. And they warn Khalid with a really powerful strategic argument. If word gets out that the Muslims broke a treaty of surrender, no other city will ever surrender peacefully again. The long-term strategic cost of violating the law heavily outweighs the immediate spoils of war. Faced with this logic, Khalid slowly concedes to the treaty. But, ever the tactician, he looks for a legal loophole. He demands the execution of the Byzantine city leaders, Thomas and Herbiasius, arguing they shouldn't be covered. But Abu Ubaydah instantly vetoes this, blocking the loophole by insisting the covenant of protection applies universally. It covers everyone who signed it, including enemy leadership.
This grounds the whole abstract debate into hard, actionable law. The Roman leaders, terrified by Khalid's aggression, ask for specific terms to leave. Abu Ubaydah legally guarantees them exactly 3 days. For 3 days, they and their people have absolute safety to flee the city in any direction with their belongings. After those 72 hours, the protection expires, and they're technically back in a state of war.
And the negotiations get incredibly granular here. When Khalid tries one last time to strip the fleeing citizens of their defenses by banning them from taking weapons, Abu Ubaydah overrules his commander yet again. He legally guarantees every single fleeing man the right to carry exactly one weapon, whether that's a sword, spear, knife, or bow, so they can defend themselves on their journey into exile.
Still, the defeated citizens are terrified of Khalid, and they demand the agreement in writing. To seal the deal, Abu Ubaydah does something pretty remarkable. He personally vouches for the integrity of his fierce rival. He assures them that despite Khalid's fury, he is a man of his word and will not violate the treaty now that it's settled. And this proves that for these early Muslims, the overarching rule of law ultimately superseded their intense internal military conflicts.
Section 4. The legacy. Conquest by force or treaty.
So we now have to look at how history officially recorded this unprecedented, incredibly chaotic day. How do you even classify a conquest that was simultaneously a bloodless surrender and a violent breach? This exact question hasn't just puzzled us. It has deeply divided Islamic legal scholars and historians for centuries, because technically, both commanders were factually correct in their claims, making the legal status of Damascus a major historical debate.
The source highlights the scholarly conclusion of historian S. Salabi to answer this. While most view it as a peace deal, the strongest working theory is quite literal. Damascus was legally ruled to have been conquered half by peace and half by force. And the physical, architectural evidence of this legal compromise? The Muslims literally split the city's main church directly down the middle, leaving one half to the Christians to honor Abu Ubaidah's treaty and taking the other half to acknowledge Khalid's physical conquest.
Which brings us full circle to the author's main point. The historical application of the dhimma meant that a promise of protection, even one made by a subordinate against the explicit wishes of the supreme commander, had the power to literally halt an army in its tracks, freeze a battle, and dictate the terms of survival for a conquered people, even amidst the blinding chaos of a siege.
So, considering the source's opening arguments contrasting modern military interventions with this specific historical event, we're left with a highly compelling question. When we look at the headlines today and the devastating civilian tolls of modern conflict that the author highlighted, we have to ask ourselves, how drastically would today's global conflicts change if this ancient standard of unshakable legal protection was universally applied? It's a heavy thought, for sure, and definitely one that leaves us with a lot to consider about the evolution, or perhaps the devolution, of the rules of war. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.